Wow, I look young again. Speaking of transformations, can you really learn Japanese just by playing video games? Some people swear by it. But how does it work? Does it even work? What games are best for learning languages? Don't worry, we're going to figure this out together. I'm learning Japanese at the moment, and I've been using video games to help me learn the language, but I'm not really a language expert. Actually, I'm kind of stupid, so I need to know, is what I'm doing actually useful?
Peter in Japan.
Gaming. Input-based learning is about immersing yourself in your target language. No native language subtitles allowed. Watch, listen, and slowly start to pick out words. It's a long-term game, but it works. For more details, you can check out my last video where I break it down a little bit more concretely. There are also a lot of helpful comments of people who have been learning languages way longer than I have, and they can also help you on your way. So the key to input-based learning is getting as much Japanese into your ears and eyeballs as possible. And one of the ways you could do that is by playing video games. I mean, there's dialogue, there's written text, there are visual clues to the context so you can actually make out what the hell is going on, and it's also incredibly fun. So you'd think everything is kind of in one package. Easy peasy, right? I went into an information crusade to find any kind of scientific evidence that this is even helpful to begin with. And it turns out there's actually a lot of literature on it. Most of the literature that I could find is actually about learning English as a second language and not necessarily Japanese. But personally, I believe that the underlying principles of learning a language is actually the same. For example, I found this study in Denmark. Some of the school children were encouraged to play video games in English to see if they improved, and the boys who gamed more often showed significant improvement in both listening skills and reading skills. And I also found this interesting study about French university students who played League of Legends to improve their English skills, and pretty much all of them, 84%, reported that they experienced improvement in their English ability. This is based on subjective feelings though. You can take your own conclusions out of that, but at least it is shown that people feel like they're improving. And I also found this, which I found really interesting. This study is with Japanese people trying to learn English, which I thought like, hey, if Japanese people can do this with English, then probably English people can do this with Japanese. So might work the other way around, I don't know. This study focused on a few Japanese students trying to learn English with a set of listen and do tasks. So somebody would tell them to do something in English, and then the Japanese people had to follow up on those instructions. However, they do not need to speak, they just had to listen and try to discern the meaning of the assignment through their comprehension. The group that was doing the input-based activities actually improved in vocabulary and grammar, even though they had no need to speak at all, which kind of proves that even just with listening, that has a huge positive impact on your language capabilities. So
those students who game a lot, I have no scientific evidence to support what I'm saying, just the 27 years of experience. They do have more skills in reading and speaking, listening as well. So they do tend to pick up on the language easier. Hi. My name is Geert Broeren. I'm an English teacher. I teach English as a second language at secondary education.
Ik ben docent Japans in Volksuniversiteit en ook doe ik privélessen via Skype. Ja, maar vroeger werkte ik als kunstenaar. Maar jij weet, kunstenaar kan niet verdienen, dus ben ik gestopt. Ook ik heb afgestudeerd Japanse universiteit in Tokio en heb ik Japans gestudeerd ook. En misschien kan ik docent Japans worden. Dan heb ik lessen gehad om docent Japans te worden.
My father used to be an English teacher. My brother has read English literature at university as well. So English pretty much ran in the family. Fun fact is, and it still upsets my brother greatly to this day, when we used to watch films, we didn't have many channels, so we were really dependent on the films that were being broadcast, the old Western movies, the Ivanhoe movies. I had the obnoxious little habit of imitating the accents that they use in the film. So when there was this really isolated sentence, you could bet anything you had on me mimicking that. And my dad used to laugh his head off, and my brother would say, oh God, just stop that. And for the rest, I learned it pretty much the way everybody learns it, through books, through reading. And I spent 3 months in England during my college years, which really helped me acquire more of the colloquialisms, etc. Well, you've got no choice, have you? I was smack dab in the middle of South Yorkshire, and there the people obviously just use their own accents, not really caring that I was from the Netherlands. So I had to just follow them, had to really listen intently. Pretty soon, instead of saying we're going to the pub, I said, well, we're going to the pub.
Oh, dat is heel goed uit Japan. In Japan moeten studeren Engels 6 jaar. En niemand kan goed Engels spreken. Ja, omdat ze hebben geen oren. Ze moeten echt horen. Dus sommige mensen kan goed de taal spreken zonder studeren, toch? Dat is alleen hier, oren. Ik denk grammatical term zegt shadowing of zoiets. Maar shadowing niet van boek, echt mensen.
Just do it. Doing it. Listen to it, speak it, write it. Just submerge yourself into the English-speaking world. And I think that goes for any language. Yeah. That's the key. I mean, what we do at schools here is learning from books. You try and get the students to watch YouTube videos. You try and speak your own English. But it's all in sort of artificial surroundings, isn't it? If you really want to learn a language without a teacher, just go and watch and listen to any material in that language that you can find, but do it with a purpose. You need to have a system. Students sometimes tell me, can I practice listening by watching movies? Yeah, but make sure that you do it according to a system. So not just with a can of beer in your hand and a bag of crisps and just click on the film and just watch it. Do it, if you can, with English subtitles. Stop every 5 minutes and then try and tell yourself as much as you can of what you've either read or heard, because otherwise you'll have to put in more time, and this is more effective. For reading material, make sure that you really grasp what it says. It would help if you already had a basis. So, well, if you had Duolingo, for example, just to mention this famous app.
Meestal gaan ze mij zeggen dat ik heb Japans al gestudeerd via Duolingo. en ze goed weten over de woordenschat. Is goed. Maar ja, dat was het.
It teaches you some words and it teaches you some phrases. And even those few words and few phrases that you have, if you've got those, you can work better with videos, films and articles or books, etc. Yeah. So try and get yourself a basis of words and phrases and work from that on just finding everything you can in that particular language. Yeah. And repeat, just like I did for the film. When you see something, repeat it by saying it. Language is connected to culture. Yes, you can learn a language without being interested in its culture, but then it becomes a separate entity. It has no personality, it has no character, and then every word becomes something you need to fight for, to achieve, to master. When you understand the culture and the social situations in which phrases and colloquialisms are used, then it becomes a lot easier. And then you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, don't you?
Students are just way more motivated to interact with the language that they're learning. So video games also reduce language performance anxiety. And since consistency is really the most important part to language learning in general, the fact that it is not only fun, but also reduces the anxiety you experience while you're trying to use the language really helps. Nobody is going to give you a bad grade if you failed to comprehend everything. Not understanding everything is just a part of the process, which is something traditional schools just simply don't really do. When I think about it, this is also kind of how I personally experienced how I learned English. I was able to speak English well before I even started English lessons in school, and I'd say I was fairly fluent by the time those lessons started. That's mostly because of the hours of Game Maker tutorials that I'd been following to make my own shitty platformer, or the hours upon hours I've been binging Markiplier and Jacksepticeye every single day. By the way, I'm a huge nerd, if you couldn't tell by my comically large glasses. Video games have at least some kind of benefit, and it does show that it really does improve your language capabilities. How should you go about this? I can't really say a whole lot about how you should be going about this, but I can tell you how I've been going about this. I've been playing a lot of AAA RPGs because they have a shit ton of language in them. Most of the time you're really forced to pay attention to the language to even be able to play the fucking game at all, is what actually drives my improvement. Because it also not only motivates me to save more words for later, but it also really forces me to try and understand as much as possible, and that theoretically is what drives input-based learning. Also, I just like AAA games. The first game that I played in Japanese was Jedi Survivor. I had already finished it in English. It helped me tremendously not getting stuck immediately trying to figure out what the fuck even the controls are. It really helped me learn a lot of basic sentence structures because the game contains a lot of one-liners. It helped me to learn basic words. I was actually surprised how much I could actually understand of what was going on, even though I had been studying Japanese for like 2 months at that point. Jedi Survivor is just really a great game, so that allowed me to just spend a shit ton of time with it. Star Wars and Japanese, it just goes together. It just works. The second game I've been playing in Japanese was Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is much more complicated than Jedi Survivor, and honestly, half of the time I don't really understand what is going on. A lot of the words that are used in Ghost of Tsushima are not very common words at all. It's also set in ancient Japan, and I love the samurai. That motivation is once again needed to keep going, because you need to keep going. Speaking of Star Wars, I've also been playing Outlaws in Japanese, and I honestly think the Japanese dub is way better than the English dub. A lot of people were very critical of this game, but I've been playing it after the major update that came out, and there's just a lot to love about this game as well. I mean, the music is amazing, the environments are great, the facial animations are still crap, but it makes the Japanese over the English mouth movements a lot more bearable. And yes, the AI in the combat is absolutely terrible as well. However, I'm also kind of shit at games, so I don't mind that either. I've also attempted to play Starfield in Japanese, however, this was just too much. Starfield is a really dialogue-heavy game, and there is a lot of complicated language in it, so I have to learn much more Japanese if I want to understand even half of what is going on. Some people actually recommended you play JRPGs. Now, personally, I've never really felt drawn to it. Perhaps I'll get back to that. I don't know, we'll see. This sounds great and all, but there are a few drawbacks that you should be aware of if you're going to try to learn a language through playing games. In video games and just media in general, but especially video games, language is often exaggerated.
The thing that you do not learn, and I'm just gonna give you one word for it, is the formal English that you need for formal situations and for academic research. And that is not what games do, although again, it is my experience that students who do acquire a lot of English through gaming pick up on the formal English quicker.
Er is een probleem over die manier. Er zijn twee soorten van taal, maar in Nederlands ook. Een game, ik denk, spreektaal informeel. Ja, maar positieve ding is, de gate is open om taal te spreken. Dus als je mag niet de informeel, maar dat is in het begin en later, je kan ook studeren formeel of zoiets. Ja, en dat is een goede manier, denk ik, om Japans of andere taal te studeren via videogame. Dat is goed.
I noticed this as well. Like pretty much all of the Japanese in any of these games is all in the informal form. It doesn't teach you how the different formality structures work, how you should use them. All of that is kind of discarded. A big chunk of my Anki decks contain vocab that I will never use in real life. For example, I've been playing Star Wars, so I now know the words hakushaku and koshaku, which are words that when the hell am I ever going to use those? I don't even use those words in my native language. If you're playing video games, it's not going to take away the fact that you need to do this every single day, or at least as often as possible, for a very long time. Ideally. And it's okay if life gets in the way and you need a break from things, and you will forget things that you will need to relearn. However, learning a language is not a race. Don't beat yourself up about that. Getting back into it is fine. Even though that is not the best for your language learning abilities to stop, maybe it is the best for you as a person and for your mental health. In conclusion, you want to learn a language through video games. What should you do? Well, first of all, choose video games that contain a shit ton of language. So spoken language ideally, written language ideally, and if it's an online game, you have the added bonus that you have free practice to try the language that you're trying to learn in, for example, a chat or even a voice chat if you're feeling up to it. Choose games that you can spend a lot of time with, ideally every single day, because once again, the most important part about active immersion and input-based learning is getting as much into your system as possible. To prevent you from knowing only things relevant to the video games that you're playing, mix it up with other types of media. So if you want to get into authentic Japanese, I suggest you watch reality shows where people speak Japanese in an unscripted way, because when people are just speaking in general, they make mistakes, they pronounce things wrong. Right? You need to be able to deal with those things too. Keep doing this for a long time. Don't give up when you feel it's not doing anything, and don't give up when you're frustrated because you don't understand anything, and trust that later you will understand. It will come, but it takes time. Don't beat yourself up. You've got this. Ganbatte.